G'day everybody, I'm Frankie Masikoff, parenting support worker for KSES, and I'm here today in our last week of What's for Lunch.
G'day everybody, I'm Chantal Haddad, nutritionist at Cattery Memorial Hospital here in town, and back again for What's for Lunch. This is our last week of our fall session, although it's pretty much almost winter now, and we'll continue with something fall themed for today. So Frankie, show us what's in the kit.
Perfect. So everybody who's participating in the program receives this free kit of ingredients and what you're going to be getting this week. And I just want to remind you all that the week prior we had a recipe that used cheese and we asked everybody to keep it. So that is something that you're not going to be receiving, but which was already included in your kit because it's vital for this recipe. They do need the cheese.
It's kind of nice.
So if you used it all, well, hopefully you have some more that you can include in your recipe, and you can be creative, I guess. So what everybody would be getting this week is the spices that you're going to need to prepare.
Italian seasoning.
And they're going to be getting a can of crushed tomatoes. There's some garlic and a little onion. You're also getting the fresh basil, which smells lovely. And hopefully maybe some of you have been able to keep some of the plants that we gave you in the spring.
Well, you have yours.
I do. I still have it. And I'm hoping it survives so that when we're back here in the spring that I'll be able to bring it as our mascot. Yeah. And to show you guys how easy it is because I don't have a green thumb. What they're also getting is the ground beef and this lovely, look at the size of this guy. Beautiful. Lovely spaghetti squash. So it was funny, Chantal, because when we were talking about this just earlier, you mentioned different sizes, right, of these?
Exactly.
Okay, perfect.
So everybody's squash is a little different, one from the other. And so you'll have, your recipe will come out a little different, let's say. You have to sort of use a little bit of judgment as to how long it needs to cook or, you know, how much sauce to mix into it. So Frankie, you want to pass me that squash? So this is a spaghetti squash, if anyone's not familiar with it. And the fun thing about spaghetti squash is that on the inside, you get strands that resemble spaghetti. That's why it's called spaghetti squash. And it's really fun to undo the strands and to eat them. So in this recipe, it's a spaghetti squash casserole. Basically, we're going to use the squash instead of spaghetti, and it's going to be baked like with a meat sauce and with a bit of cheese on top. So what do you do with this? It takes a bit of time to cook. That's our first step. So we're going to use the microwave, which makes it go much faster. But at home, you can use the oven if you have more time. And in order to cook this in the oven, you need to pierce it all over. So really stab it hard with a fork. Then you cut it in half lengthwise. You scoop out the seeds and then you put it on a baking sheet face down with a little bit of water in the pan, and you cook it at 400 until it's done. It could be half an hour, it could be 45 minutes. You have to keep checking on it. Alternatively, you could do this in the microwave. So you pierce it all over, you put it in a plate, put about like 2 spoons of water and put it right in the microwave. You put it in there for about 10 minutes and then you check on it, and you want it to be a bit soft, and if it's not soft enough, you go for another 5 minutes. So let's put this somewhere.
Yeah, we'll lay it down here so everybody gets to see it.
And I'll show you our squash that is already microwaved. So the thing is, it comes out and it is really hot when it comes out. So we've given ourselves a few minutes to let it cool down. So it would be like this. You're gonna cut it down the middle with your knife, open it up, and this is the fun part. This is where the fun begins. So Frankie, I'm gonna give you this. Sure. And you can start taking out the seeds, and then with a fork, you're gonna pull the spaghetti strands, and you can see them already here.
Yeah, they're starting to already.
So it's nice, nice little spaghetti strand, and you'll just throw that in a bowl. Now, what are the pros and cons of baking it in the oven versus the microwave? So the seeds are edible, and they can be, you can roast them, and you can save them. You could also save them to plant squash. So depending on where the squash came from, if it's from your garden and you want to save the seeds, don't microwave them because you'll kill the seed. So you would have to remove the seeds first before cooking the squash. So that's just a little note on the seeds. All right, so while Frankie does this, I'm going to start the second part of the recipe, which is to cook the meat sauce. So Frankie, I'll let you get started and I'll...
So just before you start though, I did say that I would have a question for you, and normally when we're prepping or whatever, I ask Chantal the questions and then I end up knowing the answer, but I thought I'd save this one for the process of doing it, right? But you're great at answering. So I noticed when I was watching, there's actually a video that is part of this recipe, and it looks like the squash gets very mushy, like, you know, like it loses that texture of looking like a spaghetti. So I was wondering, is it because maybe it could be overcooked, or is it really that it would end up just becoming like mush?
So you found it look mushy once it was ready?
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's see what ours looks like once it's ready.
So there, we'll get our answer.
What's going to happen? But I mean, I suppose the thing is that if you don't cook it enough, you won't be able to get the strands out.
Which makes sense.
It's going to stick together. So it needs to be cooked enough. And if it's a little bit overcooked, it tends to be a bit forgiving.
Okay.
Now, what happens to it once you bake it with the sauce?
That's a different story. Okay,
now.
cool.
So, okay, Frankie, so go ahead and show us.
Yeah. So I'm just scooping out the seeds, and I don't want to grab all the texture of the actual squash, so I'm going to be really delicate, although I just want to put my spoon in there. It's kind of like pumpkin.
Exactly, yeah.
Same texture.
Except the strands. Right?
So not scraping too hard, that's really just what I'm trying to get here, surface it.
Okay, so meanwhile, as Frankie does that, we're going to start chopping our shallot. It's not an onion, it's a shallot. This is like a French shallot, it's called. Of course, you could use an onion instead. So it's just, I just thought, you know, the recipe calls for this. So it's just like a softer tasting onion, if you will, okay? But it's perfectly interchangeable with a onion. And so when you open it, it has sort of two parts like this, and it has this nice little purplish color, and it's very easy to chop. So I'm just gonna chop it up a bit.
So while you're doing that too, I guess we could say, and I think we have in the past actually made when we did in-person groups, was make spaghetti squash with just a regular spaghetti sauce.
This is pretty much the same idea.
So a healthier version of eating noodles, I guess the carbs.
Exactly. Okay. It's not the same kind of carbs. They're less. There's less carby.
It's less carby,
if you wish. It's more like it is still a carb, but it's a vegetable carb, so you're getting fiber, and it's not just made of flour.
Okay.
It has a lot of vitamins. You see, whatever has a yellow or orange color has a lot of vitamin A, so you can tell from the color.
So a great alternative for people who have gluten allergies.
Exactly, for sure.
I also am curious
just to lighten up your meals, or for people
but taste-wise, it's sweeter, right? Like this is sweet a little bit
different. Yeah, you're gonna see it's a little bit different. Mostly that it's lighter, very light feeling.
I think it's like if you think about boiling water and putting noodles in and waiting for them to cook. That and I think this is my fear of ever using this as a substitute for noodles, is that it just feels like it takes long to cook, but it doesn't. Just when you said like in the microwave, it's fairly fast.
Yeah.
And also the prep before, right? If you're just like poking it, slicing it, digging out the seeds, and then you just put it in the oven, it's the same thing. It's fairly quick.
That's the fun part that the kids can do.
Yes,
they love doing that. You'll see how fun it is now, scraping out the strands. Okay, so we have our shallot in the pan, and I'm using an oven-proof skillet. So this pan, it's going to be a one-pot meal. We're going to make a sauce in here, and then throw the strands in here, top it with cheese, and this is going right in the oven. So one pot meal. So I'm going to add my garlic, minced. You remember the old garlic peeling trick? So you do that, and then your garlic peel comes right off.
I'll say you're being fairly nice to that garlic. I've seen you smack down on it harder than that in the past.
Yeah. I'm feeling really kind today.
What I love is that you actually did mention one pot. So for families who are super busy, on the go, like this could be an amazing, I mean, I don't know how long it takes to leave it in the oven for, but I'm assuming not that long. If
15, 20 minutes. Because everything's cooked, so all you're doing is
just kind of melting the
cheese and kind of giving it combining the flavors a bit.
Okay, so that's what makes this recipe really fun too, is it's an easy go-to for families who are super busy and don't have much time, and it's tasty, I'm assuming, and also like kids get to be part of the fun of digging out the spaghetti and helping
Exactly.
parents with the added ingredients.
Okay, so because it's so quick, I'm actually just doing it all as we speak. Okay, so there's my garlic and shallot. Then I'm putting the meat right in there, and then I'm gonna go over to the stove and cook it while Frankie does the strands.
So
Right.
this is where it's gonna be fun. I don't think that, I'm trying to remember if I've ever done this before. Probably not. But I'm curious to see, because like I said, when I noticed that even scraping it, it kind of looked like some parts would clump together. So just add the fork to it and scoop it.
Exactly.
Look at this.
Pull it. Yeah, there you go.
Look at this. It really looks like spaghetti. It's crazy. Wow. So fairly simple, nothing, and I'm sure the kids would have a blast doing this.
It's also nice to use some of our traditional foods because, you know, squash is really one of the traditional foods from the Three Sisters Garden. It's super nutritious. If you grow it yourself, it's free. It's available.
That's right.
So it's amazing. Yeah.
Okay. So we have one that's done, and it gives you quite a bit if we look at, this is a fairly large amount. And we'll do the other one. So is this one of the staples in your home, Chantal? Because often some of the recipes we have done are things that you have already made at home and some that your kids really love and it's a family favorite.
I always cook squash when it's seasonal.
Really?
I really do. I just find it's nice to try and use what you have available that's grown here. So much of our food travels miles and miles to get to us. So, you know, why not take advantage to use
what we have?
Yeah. It's beautiful.
Oh,
Look at the color of it. Yeah. So to my meat, I'm going to add some Italian seasoning and a little bit of salt. And that's pretty much it. It's a very basic recipe. You can spruce it up if you wish, and if you don't, it's just as good. Basic.
Okay.
A bit of salt.
So I am done. And I'm just thinking, I think the only thing really that I've ever used squash in has been soup, butternut squash, and that too is very tasty. So for you viewers, if you want, share with us any types of recipes that you've made with spaghetti squash, or with any squash in fact, and if you grow your own squash, like that's something we love to know about as well. And we'll see your feedback on the feed under the video. So don't worry that we're not live and you're not watching this at the moment that we're doing it. That's not worrisome. We do still get all your feedback. So leave your comments and share if you're interested in making this recipe at home. And if you did, we'd love to know this and hear back from you. Okay, so I also wanted to share, because Chantal did mention, and if you're familiar with our show, often we already have a prep of some sort, parts of the recipe, because it just makes the recipe a lot quicker to show in the short amount of time that we use to make these videos. But this time, we're lucky that this recipe is actually that fast to make that she can walk through each step individually and we're able to see everything as we're doing it. So this is what's fun about this recipe. You really get a feel of how quick it is to make this.
So yeah, I'm just finishing. My meat is still a little bit pink, so it's going to take a minute or two more.
It's okay, I do a little cleanup here. Okay. So I also did want to share, and I know we're going to be Friday today, but I do want to let everybody know that it is Early Childhood Week, and really Early Childhood Week is, you know, really giving highlight to our children and letting them know how important they are to us. So a great way to showcase that is to have them involved in things that are going on in your home and being part of their youth and their growing up. So, you know, when we started this program, it really was formatted for families to participate in stuff with their children and get them involved, get them, you know, to learn some of these life skills that are going to follow them as they get older, and also to just build on their confidence. And that's a big part of Early Childhood Week is we want children to know how important they are and how valued they are. So, you know what, if you can and you're not part of this program, it's also great to be home with your children and have them involved in your cooking, regardless if it's just adding one ingredient to something that you're making. But it's really going to give them that that confidence that children need at specific ages. So I just wanted to send a shout out that if you are doing anything with your children to really highlight that, send us that feedback as well. We love to hear what you guys are doing, and especially if it's in the kitchen, we love that even more.
Awesome. So now the meat is browned, so I'm just going to add a can of crushed tomatoes to the meat.
So this was the other part that I found fascinating about this recipe when I watched the video, was the thickness of the sauce. It just looks so thick. Like it really, it kind of astounded me because there's like hardly any liquid juice. It really just absorbed all the meat and I guess the onions and the garlic, and then adding the spaghetti squash to it just made it look like a really thick meat sauce, which was delicious. Delicious looking.
All right, so we're just gonna let it's gonna simmer for a couple of minutes, or at least come to a boil, and that's it.
I also noticed, Chantal, there's no salt added, no pepper added.
I added a little bit of
Did you?
salt and pepper to the meat.
Okay.
Yes, for sure. You need to do that because it's really, otherwise it would be pretty bland. Okay, so here it is. So I'm gonna bring this over here, Frankie, and look at that. It's already like, it's nothing. You could let it simmer or not, you know, depending how much time you have. If you're at home in real life, while this is in the oven, you could be making this. So then you're going in parallel. Okay, so now all those spaghetti strands go right in here.
So the both of them would go. Wow.
Yep, go for it.
Okay.
I'll mix it in as you...
So that's what I was saying. I noticed like it does look like a really thick bolognese sauce, I guess we could call it. I'm curious too about always, you know, when you always tell viewers, and you've told myself that, you know, we can be creative in the kitchen by adding our own things. I was wondering, like, for me, I like texture, so I think I would love to add a little bit of diced tomatoes.
Of course.
Just to give it a little bit of texture.
Yeah. And this is a very big spaghetti squash, so if you see, we already have
that's why I was surprised.
I would maybe add just
a little bit more of the other one, and that's it.
Not the whole thing, and maybe half of it. Or, I don't know, maybe the whole thing could go in. There's still sauce a lot. Okay. So that's where you use your judgment. The one that I already prepared, I just threw the whole thing in.
Okay.
Yeah, just go for it. Throw the whole thing in.
Why not?
Why not? Right. So there it is. So now we're gonna mix it in well. It's so easy, and like you said, Frankie, if you like texture, you could do what you want with it, but I find often kids really like things that are smooth, you know, like this, that even texture kind of thing. It makes it just easy to eat kind of thing.
So even just while you're stirring it, I noticed that the spaghetti squash is staying intact, so it really does look like just super thin, clear noodles.
Yeah, like thin noodles, exactly. Yeah. So once it's well mixed, now this is ready for the cheese topping, and then it'll go as is into the oven. And I like to just make it look clean a bit. So we'll just do this, because otherwise that stuff will dry on the
rim of the pan.
It will dry right on the rim of the pan, and it'll be ugly after. It'll be hard to okay, I'm going to use my clean hand here and sprinkle.
So I guess you can make a judgment about how much cheese you add as well.
Yeah, the recipe says 1 cup, so, you know, you judge it. How cheesy do you want it? But you don't need a lot of cheese, you know, you just need to.
And you just layer it on the top?
Yeah, there you go. So this is it. Now this goes in the oven, and it comes right out of the oven, and it's all done.
Ready.
Nice and ready. Of course, be really careful when you take it out of the oven. Don't forget, this is hot, and this stays hot for a while. People have often burnt themselves on this with this kind of thing. So when you take it out of the oven, the trick I use at home is leave the oven, the pot holder on it. That way, that gives you a signal that it's still hot, you know? So
as a reminder.
Yeah, as a reminder. Okay?
Good trick. That's a good trick.
So now we're gonna take the ready-made one out of the oven.
And this is the part we love the best. Usually we have Alana that's here to be our taste tester, and I noticed in the last few videos we've done with Trudy being our guest that it was kind of me, but then I don't know, we got super busy and I didn't get to sample a couple of the last recipes, but I definitely want to sample this one.
Sampling?
Oh yes, 100%.
All right, so here it is. So I didn't use the oven proof skillet for this because I didn't have two of them. So here it is in a traditional or old-fashioned looking pan. And that's it. So I think it's ready to taste.
It actually looks like a nice lasagna.
It does.
Okay, so let's see you chop into this guy so we can see if the question I asked earlier remains.
So let's try. It's not going to hold its shape, obviously, because
it's more mushy.
There's nothing in there to hold, right?
Yeah.
So, although it doesn't look so bad.
Wow.
So
probably because it's still warm inside, I see, but maybe because it's cooled off a little bit, it's staying intact. But if we can see, and I hope the viewers get a view of this, you notice the spaghetti squash noodles in there. So let's try this.
Careful, Frankie, it might still be hot.
Yeah,
inside.
I see it's steaming.
Yeah.
Well, it smells lovely. I'm just astounded that you made like a quick sauce like that. That's really simple. Wow.
Oh, we forgot the basil.
Oh my goodness.
We're here we are. Like, this is so easy. This is so easy. So
wow.
You also have basil in your kits. So Frankie,
definitely thumbs up.
Don't go anywhere, Frankie. Let's put some basil. You want basil?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll take some, please.
I'm just gonna kind of.
Honestly, I don't know if it's also the type of cheese you use, but it's very, very tasty. I'm quite surprised.
The recipe says Fontina cheese, which I have to admit I have no idea what that is.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
We used a mixture of cheddar mozzarella. So use whatever is available to you. So there you go.
So I'm gonna steal some of this basil so that I get to.
It adds a
little punch.
A splash of flavor. Yeah, a punch of flavor.
I'm enjoying the texture of the noodles. Actually, like it's not crunchy, but it does have a little bit of texture.
More texture. And you know, another thing you could do if you feel like being fancy is instead of putting it in the oven-proof dish, you could put it back in its shell.
Oh wow!
You mix it, put it back in the shell, top it with cheese, and then
eat it out of the bowl.
It has a different look. You know?
Yeah, lovely, and it's a great way to get use of your shells. So you know what? Honestly, do this recipe, make it, try it. It's so tasty, and be creative if you want to change it up a little bit more to your liking or add different spices if you like.
What you've done to it.
Yeah, and just to let everybody know, obviously this is our last week, but we will be back here in December on the 16th with hopefully a special guest, and we're going to be, because we're getting close to Christmas at that time, which is actually coming really fast, but we are going to be here with Chantal demonstrating a little Christmas special. For that, there is no participation, so nobody needs to sign up. All you need to do is check out the video that's going to be uploaded to the KSCS. So no kits. There is no kits. It will just
be a demo. Yeah.
And you can follow along with the recipe that she's going to be creating. And if you're interested in getting the recipe for it, it will be included with the video. But if you're just curious about any past recipes that we've made, we do have them all saved on the KSCS Facebook page, so you can find them there. Go back, scroll back. We have so many different things that Chantal has showed us and introduced us to, and things that we've sampled. So you'll find those all there. And for anybody who's interested in being part of the program, we will be back here in the new year, hopefully by late January. And you can reach out to me, frankiem@kscsganawagi.ca, and I'll be able to put your name on the list. It just secures your spot, because unfortunately we are really growing in numbers, and the spots fill up fairly quickly. So if you would like more information, you can always use that email as well. And you know what? It's always a pleasure to be in the kitchen with Chantal. I always learn new things.
Likewise.
So thank you. And we look forward to seeing you back here when we'll be back with What's for Lunch.
Thanks for joining us.
Hola.